Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
All right.
Thank you. So again, I'm Kim Hosen. I'm with the Prince William Conservation Alliance, and we're delighted you could come join us for a program on Prince William Forest Park, which we had a program before on this settlement, which was called Hidden in Plain Sight. And sometimes I feel like Prince William Forest Park is also hidden in plain sight. It is such a fabulous place that most of us don't really understand the treasure that we have right here in our own backyard. I would like to first tell you that we are providing these programs at no charge, thanks to contributions from people like you. And I just wanted to show you, you can just go to our webpage and see a list of the programs, go to our calendar and the whole list is there. And to help support these and other great projects, just click join us today and you can donate safely online. We really appreciate it. That's what keeps us going. And now we are very lucky to have Tanya Gossett with us today, who is the superintendent of Prince William Forest Park. So she's in charge of the whole thing and is here to share some of the wonders of this great treasure. Tanya.
Well, thank you, Kim. And I just want to let everybody know I'm delighted to be with you this evening. A couple logistical things. So again, because we are Zooming and this is a brave new world for me, I'm going to do my very best to keep my talking points and my slides matched up. But, you know, I ask for your forbearance if that doesn't quite work out by the end. But I am delighted to be here with you to talk a little bit about what is behind the trees that we see when we're driving down Joplin Road or 234. You see that line of trees and, you know, what's back in there? It's a park, but yeah, whatever. I'm hoping by the end of this program, you will have a much better understanding of the true biodiversity and ecological wonder, as well as the rich history of the park by the time we finish today. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and start the program. I have a fair amount of information to get through. So again, ask for some grace on this. And then when I finish, I will be very, very happy to take your questions about anything that I've just presented. But it's going to probably take me about half an hour just to get through the material. So hang in there, buckle up. Get a drink or a snack if you need it. I'm going to be talking for a while here. So Kim, I'm going to go ahead and try to share the initial slide and see if this works. Okay.
Yeah, now you're an expert, you know.
No. I guarantee it.
There you go.
Okay, are we in?
Yep.
Okay. Oh my gosh, and you can see me too. Oh, well, that's unexpected. Okay. So again, I apologize. I have a lengthy dissertation here for everybody this evening, so I will be referring to my script. So I apologize for the lack of eye contact. But as I said, we'll move through this, and at the end, I'm happy to take questions. So for those of you who are local and for those of you who are not, I will start with sort of the place-based background statement. Prince William Forest Park is located approximately 35 miles south of Washington, D.C. in Prince William County, Virginia, totaling about 14,600 acres. The park is the largest protected area in the region, and it is the third largest national park unit in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is also the largest example of a Piedmont forest in the national park system, serving as a sanctuary for a diversity of plants and animals, including those threatened and endangered by disease, loss of habitat, and other environmental stressors. The forest canopy shelters the remains of a fascinating history. The National Park Service has identified the locations of Native American hunting camps, portions of the Washington Rochambeau Trace, which was the throughway for the Continental and French troops to Yorktown during the Revolutionary War. We've identified the remnants of a poorhouse that aided the destitute and the sickly from 1795 to 1925. 49 family and community cemeteries, the structural ruins of the home places of the families who farmed the land for hundreds of years, the foundations of the buildings associated with the Cabin Branch pyrite mine, where workers mined fool's gold for commercial use from 1889 to 1920. We've also found evidence of prehistoric human habitation in the park. Hunting and gathering that dates back to 6,500 before present. Last year, a Prince William County middle school student found a wide-bladed quartzite spear point in the park that NPS archaeologists identified as a Savannah River projectile point dating to the middle to late Archaic period, which is about 5,000 to 3,000 years before today. This is the third such point found in the park. We believe that Native Americans established villages in the area between 700 and 900 AD, and were farming the land that is now the park by 1100 AD. In the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, the land was farmed for corn, wheat, cotton, and tobacco, which helped to deplete the soils and leave the land submarginal for agricultural use.
Tanya, can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Are your slides supposed
Am I supposed to be clicking the slides? Thank you, Kim. Let's see if it works. Click. There we go. You're right. I should be clicking. Okay. See, I'm so far behind. Thank you. Okay. So hopefully folks sort of understand where the park is. This is a great map. This came off the county mapper, the GIS mapper for Prince William County. And it really shows really well the watershed of Quantico Creek within the park. And we're going to talk a lot about that in a few minutes. Near Interstate 95, this is a photograph of the Washington Rochambeau Trace or the Kings Highway within the park. And it's very clear, you can very clearly see the historic roadbed there. Aha, and here's our projectile point that was found by our middle school student last year. Okay, I think we're caught up. I think we're caught up. I'm going to go back and see if I can go back to the projectile point for a minute. So Kim, that's your cue. When I get to the CCC, tell me to click the button, okay? All right, where were we? We were talking about farming, right? So again, in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, the land was farmed for corn, wheat, cotton, and tobacco, which helped to deplete the soils and leave the land submarginal for agriculture by the late 19th century. We know that free and enslaved people worked those fields, and we know where many of the free white and free black residents were laid to rest. But we have very little information at this point about where enslaved African Americans are buried in the park. More research is needed to better understand the lifeways and stories of the people who lived here prior to the creation of the park in the 1930s. The park was created as part of President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal, a nationwide effort aimed at fighting the effects of the Great Depression. The irony of this action, however, was the displacement of the people who made this area their home. These were the residents of the white community of Joplin, the black community of Batestown, and the biracial community of Hickory Ridge, and those who lived on small farms surrounding those communities. The United States government compensated landowners for their property, but gave them little choice about whether they could stay or go. A significant number of tenants were simply forced off the land. Many descendants of those landowners and tenant farmers reside near the park today. And I'd just like to acknowledge that, understandably, the compulsory relocations that took place in the 1930s continue to reverberate today. The park was originally created as the Chapawamsek Recreational Demonstration Area, or RDA. It was a wholly new type of recreational venue, one that the director of the Park Service at the time stated was developed from submarginal lands with a view to provide low-cost recreational facilities for concentrated urban populations, especially the underprivileged group. That's a quote from our former director in 1935. The goal of the RDA was to provide opportunities for young people and their families who lived in Washington, D.C. and other nearby cities to experience and enjoy nature. The park was developed, literally constructed, by the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. CCC workers built facilities that would allow for overnight recreation for young people from Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and Richmond. Between 1936 and 1941, the CCC constructed 5 cabin camps, which provided social organizations in Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. an opportunity to sponsor summer camps for disadvantaged boys and girls. The YMCA, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Jewish Community Center of Washington, Family and Child Services of Washington, and the Salvation Army all held youth encampments in the parks for many, many years. Today, all 5 of the cabin camps built by the CCC are still in use and available for group or individual camping. Again, social organizations, as well as extended families and recreational clubs, continue the RDA legacy, with many returning year after year to their camp. And we get a lot of repeat customers in the cabin camps, and they want their specific camp each time. And I just want to put a plug in for those who are interested and perhaps have never had the opportunity to experience the cabin camps. You can go to our website, and it gives you all the information you need about how you can rent a group camp, the entire camp for a big group, or just one individual cabin in Camp 3 if you're interested in doing that with you and your friends or family.
Are we still keeping up with the pictures?
I think, yes, we are. Yes, we, more or less. But you have preceded me in my thought here, Kim, so I'm gonna click the button again. So here, yeah, I guess you're right. So here's Camp 2. And so again, just available for your enjoyment. Once COVID is over and everyone feels comfortable again, we're hoping to see a lot more use again out of the cabin camps. It's been a slow year, as you might imagine. So during World War II, so the CCC finished their work in the early 40s. And almost immediately with the onset of World War II, the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, converted the park into a secret training area for spies. The OSS was America's first centralized intelligence agency and the forerunner of the CIA. The OSS operated 2 training schools in the park, teaching recruits to gather intelligence, decipher codes, and interpret covert radio transmissions. Many of the features of the OSS period can still be found in the park, including the physical modifications to the cabin camps that they made, bunkers and training earthworks in the field, training equipment and material that was left behind in the field, and the small arms, mortar, and demolition ranges they used to train. After the war, the park was returned to the stewardship of the National Park Service. The cabin camps again hosted young people and young families, although they were segregated in deference to the local custom of Virginia. They were segregated up until the point that the Supreme Court issued its landmark decision in Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. Until that time, camps 1 and 4 were used by African American campers, and camps 2, 3, and 5 by white campers. Today, camps 1, 2, 3, and 4 are listed in the National Register of Historic Places. But we still do not have a full understanding of the history of the cabin camps and the people who use them. And to that end, the National Park Service is currently funding research into the park segregation era through a partnership with the University of Mary Washington. So with that sort of overview of the history of the park, I'd now like to talk to you about what makes Prince William Forest Park a great natural sanctuary, both for stressed out humans and for many other species. As I mentioned earlier, the park is located in the southeast corner of Prince William County and the northern edge of neighboring Stafford County. It covers about 14,600 acres at the geophysical transition between the rolling Piedmont Plateau and the low-lying Atlantic coastal plain. The two zones meet within the park at the fall line, where the land level drops from the harder rocks of the Piedmont to the softer sedimentary rocks of the coastal plain, resulting in unique geological features such as cascades and rock outcroppings. Marked differences in terrain, combined with its location in the transition zone between a northern and southern climate, lead to ecosystem variations throughout the park. So let's talk a little bit about this cool geology. The geology of the park is dominated by a sedimentary mix commonly known as the Lunga Reservoir Formation, which formed during the Cambrian geological period roughly 500 million years ago. The muddy conglomerate contains inclusions of pebbles and cobbles of other rock types. You can see exposed sections of the Lunga Reservoir Formation along the South Fork of Quantico Creek in the park. There are also several outcrops of folded and faulted metamorphic rocks scattered throughout the park. These rocks tend to indicate the fall line. Quantico Falls, along the main stem of Quantico Creek, is a classic example of a fall line feature. The park also has large mineral deposits, primarily iron pyrite, as I mentioned in the history section. The largest concentration of pyrite is found at the confluence of the main stem of Quantico Creek and the South Branch. This deposit is the largest of its kind in Prince William County and one of the largest in the United States. Pyrite was mined here from 1889 to 1919 and mined for its sulfur content, which, as you probably know, is a prime ingredient in gunpowder. And so there was a lot of activity, especially in the mine around the time of World War I. Perhaps the most important natural resource within the park is the 30 square mile watershed of Quantico Creek, which is largely forested and protected within the park and within Marine Corps Base Quantico. The park protects approximately 60% of the Quantico Creek watershed. And as you also probably know, Quantico Creek flows into the Potomac, which ultimately flows into the Chesapeake Bay. As part of the National Park Service's conservation mission from Congress to keep resources unimpaired for the enjoyment of future generations, the park strives to keep the forest and its watershed healthy. Water resources within the park are in good condition overall, with a 76% attainment of reference conditions, which is pretty darn good, especially in Northern Virginia. Water quality indicators such as acidity, temperature, dissolved oxygen, clarity, and plant and animal species diversity and abundance are within healthy levels in the park, and we do monitor it all the time. we have a really robust monitoring program in the National Park Service. So we are able to kind of track all of those metrics for our water quality throughout the year. A higher overall attainment of reference conditions, however, is offset by very degraded conditions for phosphorus and for stream hydrology, some of which is due to stormwater entering our streams from outside the park in developed areas. The National Park Service continues to identify gaps and conduct research to maintain good water quality by identifying nutrient sources and sensitive organisms in park waters. Another metric we monitor is water temperature. Increases in water temperature are among the most immediate results of a warming climate. In time, higher water temperatures will result in the loss of fish and other organisms that depend on cooler water. One of our indicator species is freshwater sponges. They grow on sturdy submerged objects in clean streams, lakes, and rivers. Because they are very sensitive to water conditions, their presence within an ecosystem indicates high water quality and low levels of pollutants. Freshwater sponges with symbiotic algae were reported in the streams in Prince William Forest Park in the mid-1970s and were definitively documented in 2007. Since 2007, Mueller's freshwater sponge has been identified in one location in the main stem of Quantico Creek and 2 locations in the South Fork. Through the protection of a large percentage of the Quantico Creek watershed, the park provides outstanding opportunities for education and scientific study. Fairfax County, excuse me, and other agencies routinely use the streams in the park as standards for water quality in their jurisdictions. We're always happy to see them come around because we know why they're here, and we're happy to be able to serve as a baseline for their work in Fairfax. I'm not sure where I am. Let me see where the slides are at this point. Okay, we're good. Perfect. So, of course, when your water is good, your vegetation blossoms. The forest provides a home for more than 1,200 species of plants and animals, including a few that are rare, threatened, or endangered. There may also be potentially hundreds of fungi species that occur in the park in the summer and the fall. Although at this time, the park does not have an inventory of fungi and lichen. It's something that we keep talking about, but other priorities keep coming up. So we know we need to work on that. The forest is home to 43 species of trees, including 3 types of oak hybrids. We have 19 species of shrubs and 11 vines. The most common trees within the park are those that dominate in early succession, including Virginia pine, tulip poplar, and sassafras. Other common trees include white oak, scarlet oak, American beech, red maple, black gum, pignut hickory, and black oak. All of these species are shade tolerant and dominate later in succession. The forest is maturing, and so we are seeing evidence of that based on the species of tree that we see more and more of. All of these species, oh, I said that, okay. All are shade tolerant and dominate in later succession. There are also several rare plant communities. We have butternut, big-tooth aspen, black walnut, swamp white oak, and cottonwood. And we have other plants, including the flashy red cardinal flower and the spiny devil's walking stick shrub in the park. So you never know what you're going to see when you're hiking one of the trails. As I've mentioned, there are several species, plant species within the park that are threatened or endangered, or are found at the edge of their distributional range. An example of a plant species that is right on the edge of its range is the park's remote stand of near threatened eastern hemlock. And there's a lot of management that we do around protecting those trees and hoping that they will survive where they are. Threats to these species include loss of suitable habitat due to landscape fragmentation and changing climate conditions. The delicate small world begonia, a federally listed threatened species, was discovered in Virginia in 1983. A member of the orchid family, the species is quite finicky about where it will grow. It requires an upland mixed hardwood forest of trees, and they must be at least 40 years old. It's very picky. The small world begonia colonies also need an open shrub layer or a break in the forest canopy to survive. There are only 47 known colonies of this flower within the state of Virginia. 7 of those are in Prince William Forest Park. The park's forest provides critical habitat for wildlife populations as well. Again, because of its location covering 2 physiographic provinces, the coastal plain and the Piedmont, and again, because it's located right in that transition zone between northern and southern climates, the park supports a variety of habitats for healthy breeding populations. The park hosts more than 43 species of mammals. Some are passing through and some are residents. White-tailed deer, wild turkey, gray fox, red fox, American beaver. They're at home in the park and you will see them pretty much almost anytime you come by. They thrive here. We also have, just in case you're out on the trail, be wary, we do have 2 species of skunk. They don't tend to get in your way, but just in case, the striped skunk and the spotted skunk. And if you're lucky, you might see an American black bear, a coyote, if you're up early, or even a bobcat. But when I think of the park as a haven for biodiversity, I think of bats. Researchers from Virginia Tech have identified 12 different bat species in the park and on Marine Corps Base Quantico. We've had a research project now for several years with Virginia Tech and the Marine Corps Base, and they're looking at the entire landscape between the 2 federal properties. This area, again, we're right on the edge of the range of several species of bats. 3 of them are federally endangered or threatened. The Indiana bat, which is endangered, the Virginia big-eared bat, and the northern long-eared bat, which is threatened. If you're not familiar with the northern long-eared bat, let me just share that since 2006, 99% of that species population in the northeastern United States has been decimated by white nose syndrome, which is a bacterial disease easily spread in moist cave environments. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service predicts it will take the species 400 to 500 years to bounce back to 2006 population levels. Recent acoustic and mist netting studies by Virginia Tech documented northern long-eared bats roosting and successfully reproducing in the park in sloughing tree bark in tree cavities, and biologists continue to survey the park for overwinter hibernacula. Could large natural landscapes like Prince William Forest Park save an entire species? We think yes. Other bats that have been detected through Virginia Tech's research include the eastern red, the hoary, the silver-haired, the southeastern, the eastern small-footed, the little brown, the evening tricolored, and Mexican free-tailed bats. So we do like bats in the park.
Any photos?
Oh, shoot, Kim. I went through this whole thing about northern long-eared. Oh, here, okay, so we're gonna back up. We're gonna do a little bit of plant and fungi here. I don't know what the mushrooms are, but I know that that's a pink lady slipper on the right. See, I get so into my talk that I forget to move the pictures. There we are. So this is a photo taken last year, about this time of year. That is a female northern long-eared bat captured by the Virginia Tech researchers in their mist nets. And she is being tagged with a radio transmitter. And it's just absolutely fascinating to watch them work. But she's being tagged with a radio transmitter that will eventually, in about 2 weeks, probably just fall off of her. She'll be fine. And that's how they can determine exactly where the bats are roosting. And yeah, it's been a phenomenal project. And you can see how tiny she is, right, compared to his fingers. So there is one of our resident northern long-eared bats. Okay, we'll get to these guys in a minute. Speaking of things that fly, let's talk about birds for a moment. We have approximately, or we've identified at different years in the recent past, up to 133 species of birds that are either living in the park or migrating through. The residents include owls and hawks, pileated woodpeckers, warblers, bluebirds, and other songbirds. In 2009, the American Bird Conservancy and the National Audubon Society named the park an important bird area, which considers small sites that are either critical to rare species or that support large concentrations of species. The park is home to 19 bird species of conservation concern. And unfortunately, I don't have any good owl pictures, but I have seen a barred owl that just blew me away. He was so huge, and he landed right in front of our vehicle one day, and it was just an incredible experience. Another category that is worth mentioning are amphibians and reptiles in the park. Our stream surveys have identified 20 species of amphibians, 10 salamanders, and 10 frogs. The mixed deciduous forests and aquatic habitats yield the highest number of species, while the floodplains in the park contain the fewest. The park's ephemeral pools are important breeding habitat for amphibians, and Quantico Creek's tributaries contain numerous salamander species. We've also documented 23 reptile species, including 13 species of snakes, including our little friend here, northern rat snake, and 4 lizards, 6 turtles, species of turtle within the park. And of the snakes in the park, of those 13 species, only one, the northern copperhead, is venomous. And I would encourage everyone to always keep a lookout for them. They are around. They especially like to cozy up underneath the cabin camp, the cabins in the cabin camp. So just always keep an eye out for them. They are not aggressive, but if you startle them or step on one, you can expect a certain reaction from them. But generally, they will stay away from people. So we've talked a lot about the water quality, and I mentioned this earlier. Within the watershed for Quantico Creek, and including a portion of the watershed for Chapawamsett Creek at the south side of the park, there are approximately 18 miles of streams and 2 impoundments within the park. All of those are open to fishing. Not everybody knows that. So if you do like to fish, you can do that in the park. The water quality of the creek, again, supports 27 known fish species. And as I've mentioned, the fish in the aquatic communities are excellent indicators of watershed health and water quality. They are sensitive to many of the factors that go into water quality, including pollution, stream hydrology, diseases, and invasive organisms. They're also a vital part of the ecosystem in the park. They consume plankton, crustaceans, insects, and other organisms. And in turn, they themselves become food for our birds of prey, river otters, raccoons, and other animals. In 2011, the last time we surveyed our fish populations, we identified the following species in park waters: American eel, rosy-side dace, cutlips minnow, black-nosed dace, red-breasted sunfish, fall fish, margin mad tom. I guess that was it, and margin mad tom. There's one game fish in the park. And again, it's been 9 years, so I can't completely say I know for sure, but in 2011, we did have one game fish, the chain pickerel, which is a type of pike. And we also have some non-native fish, and one of them is particularly troublesome. Our friend, the northern snakehead, has been identified in the park. And so when fishermen come in the park, we always encourage them to catch the northern snakehead and do not release it back into the stream. Please kill it and take it away or leave it for the birds. We are not thrilled that they have found their way into our park waters. So again, that's sort of a very quick and dirty, but slightly intense review of both the history of the park and the natural resources you'll find in the park. But the other really significant thing that we do is recreation. Approximately 4 million people live within an hour's drive of Prince William Forest Park. And locally, Prince William County's population has increased by 30% between 2000 and 2010. And with the new 2020 census coming out, we'll find out how much higher that's gone even still in the last 10 years. Neighboring Stafford County has also experienced considerable growth. Its population has increased almost 40% between 2000 and 2010. So there are a lot of people living in this area that can take advantage of the wonderful resources in Prince William Forest Park. Right now, we are seeing a considerable spike in our visitation. COVID has gotten people thinking about how they can spend time outside. And we are seeing an uptick in our visitation this year. There's no question about that, which is something of a surprise, but when you think about it after the fact, it makes perfect sense. But up until this year, our average visitation has been increasing from about 350,000 to closer to 400,000. And honestly, we believe that that number is much higher. The reason for that is that because many of our visitors enter the park on the north boundary, rather than coming through the main entrance on the south down by Triangle, where we have vehicle counters installed. On the north side, we don't have a good way of really counting people as they come into the park. So we actually think that the current visitation to the park is somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to maybe 420,000 people a year. The recreational opportunities are very similar to what was created back in the 30s by the CCC in the RDA, but it's been added to significantly. Those opportunities include camping and fishing, hiking, biking, exercising of other types. We have people who do yoga in the forest, observing and photographing nature, all those things. We've got all of that, and we are always welcoming people to come and explore. We have 37 miles of trails. We have 4 picnic areas. We have 100-site family campground for tents and small RVs. We've got a group campground for scouts. And we have a concession operated RV campground. If you like to RV, you can do that too. We even have a small backcountry area with 6 backcountry campsites. And of course, the 5 CCC cabin camps are available for a total up, and they can accommodate up to almost 900 people if they're all filled up at one time. Most of our visitors are day visitors, and that's great. But we also love to see people coming in and using the cabin camps and camping out in the campgrounds. So I encourage everyone on tonight's call to check out the park and all of its natural and historic beauty. It's all waiting for you right behind those tree lines. And again, I forgot to click on the slides, Kim.
Oh, you need more practice.
this is so weird. Like if I were in the room, I would know, it would make more sense to me, right? So
You bet.
this is Oak Ridge Campground, our 100 site campground. And this is some folks at the cabin camps enjoying some canoeing on one of the lakes. And this is the oldest bridge in the park. This is the Pyrite Mine Pony Truss Bridge. And we've just restored the bridge. We had some work done on it last year. It was damaged by a tree that fell on it, but we've had it fixed, and we've had it painted, and doesn't she look beautiful? So please come on down and enjoy the fall weather. And I am more than happy to take anyone's questions at this point.
Well, Charlie had a question about your trails plan. Charlie, do you want to just ask it out loud?
Sure. I was delighted to see that you've completed a trails plan. That's not a simple exercise in a government bureaucracy, and especially where you are, you have quite a few interesting challenges. So could you brag up about what you did and tell us what's coming next for trails?
Sure. Yeah. So when the Park Service does any kind of planning initiative, it takes years to actually get to the point where it gets funded and we can hire a contractor to come help us manage it. But we did start in 2018 and we finished in 2019. We had a lot of good community conversation around what folks were interested in. I'm trying to remember, I'll have to look. If it's not on our website, which it should be, you can take a look and see the plan. If it's not, and I will check that, I will send a copy over to Kim and she can post it if you're interested.
You bet.
So the idea was to expand the current trails network. As I said, we currently have 37 miles of trails. We're going to add eventually up to 13 miles of trail. We are looking at expanding but controlling mountain bike trails. And we are looking at the potential, if we can get a maintenance agreement in place for it, to open up some new equestrian trails in the northwestern section of the park. We are looking at making some connections that really need to be made. The current trail system was very organically created. And this was the first real attempt that the park in its 80-year history had to say, okay, this is what we've got. How do we make it an even better system? How do we add loops that people can hike or run? How do we connect places like the backcountry to the rest of the trail system? Things like that. Another really important aspect of the trail plan was the environmental concerns that we had about many of our trails being right on the stream banks. And that compaction is causing the stream banks to erode more quickly. So we want to eliminate that issue. And we've already relocated a couple segments already, but we want to push those trails back off of the stream banks, maybe 20 or 30 feet. So you can still have access to the creek, but that people aren't walking right alongside of it and causing that erosion. You know, in August, we had a terrible flood in the park from a sort of a microburst storm that hit and landed. It's like all the water from that entire storm came into Quantico Creek's watershed. I don't know that it went anywhere else. I think it just came down on us. And it just, when we went through and looked at when the flood waters receded, right? The flood had gotten up and above Quantico Creek, especially the main stem in the north side of the park, had gotten 2 to 3 feet above that, easily 50 feet off the stream. So it was a huge amount of water in a very short period of time. And the immediate issue was the bridges are damaged. We have to close them until we're sure they're okay. But the second one was the stream banks in those areas just started sloughing off into the water. And that was because those trails are so heavily used that we were I'm really pleased to say that we've got that plan in place. We're already looking at sort of inventorying and moving those segments of the trails off of the streams to protect them. So yeah, so you're right, it was great. And we are really excited to have that plan and move forward with that. The last thing I'll say about that is we also had a couple, one of our other objectives was to increase universal accessibility for some of our trails. We got a very, very warm reception from the community of folks who live with disabilities. And we have a couple different specific trail segments that we're going to start moving toward making universally accessible. So we're excited about that too.
Thanks.
And maybe you could stop sharing the screen now.
Sure.
Okay, and Dave had a question about how you're managing the overabundance of deer. Oh, I'm sorry, I was waiting for Dave. Does Dave have a more specific question, or is that just the question? What are we doing about the deer? And how you're faring with your management plan, because the county is overrun.
Well, it's interesting. You know, there's the data on the deer is a little bit in the park is a little bit controversial. Yeah, it's too strong a word. We have differing opinions about the data that we're seeing. In the National Park Service, we use seedling regeneration as the metric to determine if we have too many deer. Over on Marine Corps Base Quantico's side of the forest, they use a different metric. And so, but they also have a hunt every year, right? They allow hunters to come in and take the deer as part of that program. So what we think we're seeing right now is fewer deer in the southern section of the park, closest to Marine Corps Base Quantico, which makes sense, and more deer in the northern section of the park, which is probably about right. And we are looking at beginning, we have not yet started, but beginning an environmental assessment to address deer management in the park. So we haven't started yet. Prince William Forest Park is in considerably better position in terms of deer than a lot of our sister parks in our region. But because including Manassas, which is really overrun. But in the forest, it's better. And we think that predation has something to do with that. There are coyotes in the park, and we think that they might be suppressing the numbers a little bit. They're not going to be able to keep up with all of it, but it's not horrendous for us quite yet. But we are at the point where we need to take a very careful look at deer management. So yeah, that's where we are.
Is that covered, Dave? You have to unmute. Oh, there you are. I can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay, Dave is trying to talk, but we can't hear him. No. Well, Dave is working that out. Somebody asked if you all rent canoes.
No, we don't. We don't rent canoes.
And
You have to bring your own.
Sonny thinks you guys are the best.
Thanks, Sonny.
And
I have a question.
yes,
Tanya, on your impoundments, you mentioned you have, I guess, a few lakes at least. Are those all man-made impoundments? And if they are, were they constructed by the CCC?
Yes, that's correct. So the photograph that I showed was two CCC members in the middle of the construction of what became the Lake 5 Dam, which is still I think it's one of the coolest places in the park. It makes a really cool waterfall, basically. So yeah, we have each of the cabin camps had a lake associated with it because water recreation was part of what they were creating when they made the camps. And then we also have a small pond called Carter's Day Camp Pond, Carter's Pond, which is sort of near Cabin Camp 3 right off of Scenic Drive as you're driving toward parking lot A on the left. It's one of my favorite quiet spots in the park, also by the CCC.
And I understand that is stocked, Carter's Pond.
No, we do not stock fish. We used to a long time ago, but the Park Service doesn't do that anymore, anywhere, really.
Hello?
Tom? Or I saw somebody's hand.
I've got my microphone working.
Oh, there you go, Dave. Good.
Genius, right? Just to follow up on the deer management. So do you have a problem with poaching, with illegal hunting?
Not really. We have a couple neighbors who have deer stands on their property, and the rangers just sort of keep an eye on it.
Okay.
No, it's not a major issue for us.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, anyone? Eileen?
I just wanted to ask for an update on the possibility of an entrance from 234.
Well, Eileen, thank you for asking that question, honestly, because I am happy to let you all know that with the help of Prince William County, the county went ahead and on behalf of the park and the county submitted to Eastern Federal Lands, which is a unit of federal highways, a request for a grant to design a new entrance to the park on the north side near Spriggs Road. The request is for $1.3 million to do the design. Okay, so not the construction, just the design, which would also going to require us to go through all of the NEPA compliance and the NHPA compliance and all the federal stuff we have to do. But both the county and the park are providing some matching fund for that. And so we're just hopeful that Federal Highways will say yes, and we can start the process of designing a new entrance on the north side.
Thank you.
Jack? You need to unmute.
Okay, there it is. Yes, thank you. Tanya, it was a great presentation. Just the thought occurred to me, I'm an Eagle Scout, been active in Scouts, but it's been a while. But I was thinking they might be a good group to help identify fungi and lichen, or, to have some projects. Of course, Virginia Tech has been helping. You've got Nova, you get George Mason, Mary Washington, all these institutions that have young people that could contribute in some fashion if we could come up with some cohesive plans to say, well, what are our needs and how do they match up with some of the interests of the various groups that could volunteer and provide a knowledge base here and get an education and exposure to our beautiful resource. Thank you.
In the chat, you also have offers from Master Naturalists and Master Gardeners.
Yeah, we have. Well, thanks, Jack. And I agree. I mean, it's a capacity issue, really, right? I would love something like a bio blitz for fungi with our staff, and to have people crowdsource that information through iNaturalist or something like that. We also do have it would be great to get kids involved with that. I'm I don't know anything about fungi. I'm a cultural resource person by training. So if you notice, I didn't use any Latin when I was describing any of the species, right? Because I can't do that. But, and I always give the biologist a hard time about that. I'm like, don't talk to me in Latin. Tell me it's a bear. Don't tell me it's, okay. But it's we do have a actual formal 5-year partnership agreement with the Virginia Master Naturalists at Merrimack Farms, and I would love to work with them on something like that. But right now everything's COVID is suppressing all of the fun stuff we want to do. So, but yeah, I'm all ears for suggestions of how to get the fungi survey taken care of. So yeah, thank you all for your ideas there.
Eric, you had a question?
Well, first of all, thank you, Superintendent Gossett. This is Eric Fagerholm. I happen to be the president of the Master Naturalist Mayor
Oh,
McFarland.
Eric, hi. Yes.
Yeah, and we're chomping at the bit to resume. It's too bad we didn't do the bird hikes. I'm going to put on a
Right.
different hat. I'm also a Conservation Alliance board member, but I do live in Montclair. One comment I have is when this north side entrance is constructed, I hope we consider that the Washington Reed parking lot, by the way, is, as you know, is a de facto parking lot already for the Park Service. I just hope we don't make too many parking spots. I think we ought to consider the Forest Park High School in particular has many unused spots. I just hope that overflow parking could be accommodated, maybe a cooperative agreement with the county schools or something like that, so that we minimize the amount of asphalt that's laid in the park and come up with a cooperative solution with the county schools. That's my input. Thanks.
Yeah, Eric, thanks. And hello again. It has been a long time, I think over a year since I've seen you. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry I didn't see you down in your box there. Yeah, we are missing you guys. We really are missing you guys. We missed you a lot this fall in terms of the master naturalists, in terms of giving programs and things. So next year, COVID will be less of a thing. Fingers crossed, right? In terms of the parking lot, so to be clear, this entrance will not be a through entrance. You will not be able to drive into the park using this entrance. And it is only slated for up to 100 spots, which sounds like a lot, but really the footprint of that is not huge. We're also looking at a location that's already been disturbed. So we're hoping, and we think the runoff is it's a fairly flat, already disturbed area. So we're feeling pretty good about the location. But I would agree with you that the county, especially the school board, has a lot of asphalt that we can work with them on. And so I appreciate you thinking that way. We definitely don't want to overdo the parking, but we do want to provide a safer way and a more convenient way for people to get into the park. The other issue, as I mentioned in my presentation, is that a northern entrance to the park will give us an opportunity to better track the number of people coming in and out. And that all plays into what we can then request in terms of increases in our base funding and things like that. So it's important on the business side as well for us to get a better understanding of how many people are coming in. So, but
Great answer. Thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, any more comments, questions? And also, if you don't want to get missed, you can go down to the bottom of your screen and raise your hand or just speak up.
Superintendent, one more.
Got one?
Go, Charlie.
So Dumfries is about to redevelop. They're going to move Route 1 out of downtown and over to the east side of Dumfries. That's a great opportunity for the park. How do you hope to work together with the town of Dumfries next?
Well, that is a good question. I have to admit that I'm not really up on their plans as much as it sounds like I need to be. We have a couple projects on that side going on right now. We are engaged with the county right now on their Triangle Small Area Plan, which is butting right up against the Dumfries planning effort. And we have a project that we just put in for new Great American Outdoor Act funding, or we're working on scoping it, I should say. We haven't put in for it yet. That's the big law that got passed, I want to say back in August. And it's 5 years of funding for a lot of funding for the National Park Service to tackle its deferred maintenance issues as well as some other projects. As part of that, what we want to do is make a trail connection. If it makes sense from a cultural resource standpoint, we want to try to make a trail connection on or next to the Washington Rochambeau Trace so that people could enter from, this is right where Van Buren and Mine Road come together, right there at 95. And you can walk right into Dumfries from there, right? So we're looking at making a segment of the Potomac Heritage Trail there, and then bringing people in from Dumfries. They would have an easy walkable access into hiking access into the park from there. So So those have been our priorities, but now that you mention that, someone has, prior to COVID, somebody told me about Dumfries' plans to move things around. And honestly, I haven't followed up. So I will make a note of that and we'll follow up with that.
It would be a great place to make Dumfries accessible to the park and the park accessible to Dumfries.
Mm-hmm.
Great idea. Any more ideas or fabulous stories?
Yeah, I think Alex Venegas in planning might have been involved with that Dumfries area, small area plan. So it might be good to at least chat with the planning office and get oriented on those small area plans and strategies. Thank you.
Yeah, Jack, we actually have been doing that, and we've been on several calls with Alex about the triangle plan, but not as much with the town of Dumfries on their Dumfries plan. So yeah, we need to kind of catch up with them.
Karina.
Hi.
Hey, I'm missing you this time.
Thanks. I have a quick question. Do you guys have any sort of like a visitor survey? I know at or was it at Mason Neck, we had a couple ACE or interns come and do a visitor survey just to get like the demographics and the background for our visitors.
That's a great question. Thank you. Because as I've mentioned a couple of times, we don't really know what's happening right on the north side of the park. Yes, we have one lined up. It was supposed to happen this year, but it got canceled due to COVID. So we are lining it up again for May, starting in May this year, next year, 21. It's it'll be very robust. The social science behind that the National Park Service invests in is pretty heavy stuff. We have a great team of academic researchers from several universities working with us. And I think one's Kansas State, one's, oh gosh, it's one of our Virginia ones too, and it's gone on in my head. I want to say VCU, but that's not right. Anyway, it's a great team. And they will start doing visitor surveys in the coming spring through the summer. We've asked a whole bunch of questions of them. We are really interested in understanding what our visitors are really looking for. I have given them very clear instruction that I definitely want to hear from people about connectivity in the park, right? This is a big issue for everybody. Cell signals in the park are bad. And, you know, even from a safety standpoint, that makes me very uncomfortable as a superintendent. We want people to come into the park and disconnect from their devices, but at the same time, if you fall down and twist your ankle, you need to be able to call out. So that's really important. We'll be looking at those kind of questions and just all sorts of different things about, you know, why are you coming to the park? How far did you come to the park? What kind of amenities would you like to see in the park in the future? All kinds of stuff. So really excited that that's hopefully going to happen this year, and hoping that COVID doesn't upset that apple cart again.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm sorry it got put on hold. I know a lot of things did, but I'll be looking out for that in the next few years. Yeah.
We have somebody who would like maybe a few words on your orienteering.
What kind of words?
What?
What kind of words?
Of what it is, maybe. And I don't even know if you still have the program there. I know years ago I went someplace and we picked up our goals with my kids.
So when the visitor center is open, which is Friday through Sunday at the moment, because again of COVID, you can go to the visitor center and get a orienteering map, basically, or yeah, it's a map. And then you can go over to Turkey Run, which is where it's located, all in the woods all around Turkey Run, and try to locate your posts, right? We get a lot of people who really enjoy that. We get a lot of clubs that come in and want to do orienteering. Somebody, was it Charlie? Was it Jack? Somebody mentioned Eagle Scouts. So last year we had an Eagle Scout project where we had the Eagle Scout come in and identify all the broken posts with the numbers and find exactly where the holes were, and he and his scout troop fixed it all up. So now the orienteering course is ready to go again. It looks great. We are super excited that it's back in one piece. There were, I mean, there's like, I don't know, 20 some posts that were either fallen down or you couldn't read the number on them anymore, or they had been picked up and put up against a tree somewhere, not where they were supposed to be. So he and his scout troop did a terrific job. We were really happy to have them in to help us work with that.
It's a fun activity. My kids loved it. Anybody else before we say goodbye for now? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all very
I hope
much.
you enjoyed the program. It was fascinating, and thank you so much.
Thank you. It was
Great.
wonderful.
Terrific.
Yes, thank
Did you
you.
get-
Thanks
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Kim, I'm going to sign off.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Okie doke. See you later.
Thank you very much.
You bet.